couple quick things before we get started. Number one, if you hear beeping in the background, I was too lazy to get my burrito out of the microwave. Sorry. Number two, more importantly, we're going to have two live chats, one on Monday and one on Tuesday. The one on Tuesday is going to be a deadline chat that will start right after I get off work. I work 5:30 to 1 that day, and I'm going to be exhausted. But we'll just chat about the deadline and what we saw and a whole bunch of stuff. Number two, we'll have a live chat for the game against the Red Sox for Mile Y enthusiasts. It's $4.99 a month. You get a bunch of cool stuff. I'd really appreciate your support. $4.99. That'll start at 4 o'clock right when the Mariner game starts. So, yeah, would really appreciate you guys checking that out. And I appreciate you guys coming out, and I appreciate all the support you guys have shown. All right, we got that out of the way. Mariners win 6-3. They improve to 56-51 on the season, and they sweep the series against the just atrocious Chicago White Sox. Go over the scoring plays. First inning, big dumper homers to left to score Randy Arozarena, 2-0 in the middle of the first. Mariners get another in the second. Leo Rivas, I always want to call him Luis Rivas, grounds into a fielder's choice to score Dylan Moore. That makes it 3-0. And then in the third inning, Jorge Polanco and Dylan Moore score on Mitch Haniger is safe at first on a fielding error by Paul DeYoung. He actually made 2 errors in that inning. 5-0 middle of the third. White Sox get one in the bottom of the third. Tommy Pham singles home Corey Lee. That makes it 5-1. Mariners get another in the fourth. Big dumper singles home Victor Robles. 6-1. Seventh inning, Paul DeYoung does hit a long homer to score Andrew Benintendi off Bryce Miller. 6-3. End of scoring plays. Number one negative. Wow. Really wish we could play the White Sox a lot more. That is a dreadful baseball team. So they have played exactly 2/3 of their season, and they're 27-81. So their 13.5 wins per third tells you that they're on pace to go 39.5 and 122.5. We'll round down for fun. They're on pace to lose 123 games. It's bad for baseball. It's great for the Mariners that they were able to take advantage of playing them. They won 6 out of 7. They really should have won 7 out of 7. But goodness gracious, the White Sox are just atrocious. Some negatives related to the Seattle Mariners on top of not playing them. The bottom of the lineup was not good today. Mitch Haniger struggled. Tyler Locklear struggles. Tyler Locklear does not look ready. And there's been some rumors connecting the Mariners to a few first base people. It's worth pointing out that Josh Bell, who is not great, but I think an improvement over what they've gotten from France and Locklear now, is a potential target. Some other guys, it's bad. And then Leo Rivas does get the RBI, and I know people look at his AAA stats and say, why not give him a shot? He's a utility infielder. He's not a bad little bench guy to have, and he's certainly a defensive improvement on what they get from Dylan Moore at shortstop. And honestly, could be a defensive replacement for Jorge Polanco late in games too. But the bottom of the lineup struggled pretty bad today. Pretty bad. My biggest negative from this game is I don't love the decision-making with the bullpen today. Austin Voth made a ton of sense in the 7th inning in that situation. It's a 6-3 game, and I know a 3-run game is far from insurmountable. Using Jimmy Garcia and Andres Munoz on back-to-back days, I don't get it. I think managing based on a statistic that was created is silly. Now, you could argue wins and losses are created too, but you know what I'm talking about. The save statistic was specifically created. I don't get using those guys on back-to-back days. And the problem is now, almost assuredly, especially with Munoz throwing 20 pitches, Garcia only threw 7, so I guess he could be available, but I doubt they'd be using him on back-to-back for a series against a much better baseball team. Look, I don't have a ton of faith in Trent Thornton. I don't have a ton of faith in Taylor Sassetto. I don't have a ton of faith in Gabe Speier. Use those guys. Use those guys and save Munoz and Garcia for a massive series coming up. I did not like using those guys in back-to-back games. I'm not going to pretend I know more than Scott Service. I can just tell you how I feel. And how I feel is using those guys in that situation against this crumb bum of a baseball team doesn't make sense. Doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense to me anyway. You know what makes sense? First of all, going to Simply Seattle. Number two, once you're at Simply Seattle, and that's www.simplyseattle.com, of course, use code MOLLYWOP15 to save 15% off your order. MOLLYWHOP15. It automatically takes that 15% off. Already great prices. It's a great deal from great people. You're showing support for the show. You're showing support for a local business. If you're a Seattleite, if you're not a Seattleite, hey, you're showing support for a local Seattle business. Really appreciate you guys checking them out and really appreciate Simply Seattle for their support as well. Once again, www.simplyseattle.com, code MOLLYWOP15, link in the description if for some reason you can't remember that. I don't blame you if you can't remember that. I can't remember a lot of things. Positives, you get the sweep. And it was the most necessary sweep that I can ever remember. I was talking to Grandma about this, and she said they really should sweep this terrible team. And I was like, you're right, Grandma, but they've lost a bunch of games in a row, and baseball is still like as crappy as the White Sox are, and they are crappy. They at least, they at least have won 27 games. They can beat people. But you really needed to sweep this series, and you did it. You were able to do it. Number two positive. Let me check on something. Okay, Google, what's the score of the Dodgers game? Let's go. I don't know if you heard that or not, but Dodgers win 6-2. So this division, once again, is technically tied. Yeah, the Astros, well, it's a weird one because the Mariners have the tiebreaker, but the Astros also have 2 games to play. So whatever. We're going to call it a tie because that's what the division standings say. So thank you, Dodgers, for winning 1 game. You should have won all 3, but they get 1. So that's good too. For those of you in the wild card hunt, I'm not ready to go into that yet because the Mariners are pretty far back. Well, they're only a win back of the Royals, I think, but yeah. And they don't have the tiebreaker against the Royals, by the way. Anyway, let's talk about this game. The bottom of the order was bad. The top of the order was really good. In particular, Robles, Arozarena, and Big Dumper. Robles, another couple of hits, a double, scores a run. Just, you can't, this is not that small a sample anymore, folks. He's been absolutely phenomenal. And I was thinking about this too. Well, let me just go over the other lines too. Arozarena gets on 3 times. Yes, 2 of the hits went about a total of 4 feet, and he just missed that homer. And I will say this, I criticized the other guy for it. Goldie, you got to be better. You got to be better. I was typing up a transaction for NBC Sports, and all of a sudden I heard that voice, and I just about had a stroke, and I was so excited that Randy had his first homer, and I see that ball go foul. Come on. I love you, Goldie, but let's be better. But really good at bats today. Gets on 3 times. Just misses that first Mariner homer. And then Big Dumper. Awesome. The big 2-run homer off of Garrett Crochet. Garrett Crochet, who did not look like he was having a very good time. Now, he was hurt by his defense a little bit, but he still didn't look like he was very happy. He did not look like he was very happy. Having said that, I don't care what his mood was. The Mariners got absolutely, dominated's not even a strong enough word for how they just got their butts kicked. They got their butts kicked by Garrett Crochet the last time they saw him. So to score 5 runs, even with 2 of them unearned, don't care. But what I was thinking about while I was looking at this top of the lineup, so Julio hopefully back soon. I wonder if you leave the top of the lineup alone and you put Julio in the 4 spot. I'd be awfully tempted. I'd be awfully tempted to have these three guys who get on base this often and having Julio as either somebody who's going to bat with hitters on, which I think is a good thing, or leading off an inning. And we have seen how effective Julio is leading off an inning. Again, My preference is Julio Rodriguez in the leadoff spot. I think it's where he's the most comfortable and it's where he's had the most success. You can just, I don't even need to argue with you. Go look at the stats. But they're not going to do that. I would be really tempted to put Julio in the 4 spot. Now, they're probably going to put him in the 3. I think Victor Robles is leading off. Then you have Randy hitting 2nd, Big Dumper hitting 4th, and Julio hitting 3. But I'd kind of be tempted to just go with those 3 and then Julio at the 4, Polanco 5. Boy, doesn't that sound so much more effective? And I'm sorry, when JP Crawford comes back near the end of August, I think is what they're projecting, he's hitting 9th. There's no way you can have JP Crawford back in the leadoff spot. Not a chance in heck. Good job self-editing there, Chris. No way. No, that is, I think, what your lineup should be. And of course, we're hoping that they add another bat or 2. And there's still time. Still time. A bunch of trades today. A couple of guys that I really liked, especially Isaac Paredes, get moved today. I was very surprised it was the Cubs, but there's time to get better. But let's just assume that they don't. I think that should be your 4. I think you should go with Robles or Rosarina. I would hit Julio 4th and have Big Dumper 3rd. They'll probably reverse it. I don't hate it, though. I don't hate it. On the pitching side, Bryce Miller was fine. There were a lot of warning track balls today. But he did strike out 6. He doesn't issue a walk. Pitches into the 7th inning because he was so efficient and just filled the strike zone. And I also think there was a little bit of game planning to this today. The Mariners said, Bryce, just throw that spinny fastball and make them beat you. And they did in the 7th. Paul DeJong, however you pronounce it, Paul. I think Paul actually makes sense as a Seattle Mariner trade candidate because of his power. And despite the 2 errors today, he's made like 14 on the year. Errors are not the way to judge defense. I think he'd be an excellent platoon option, probably at 3rd base, and someone I feel more comfortable playing shortstop than Dylan Moore. He is a strong defensive player. Do not let the errors fool you. Paul is the guy that I think makes a lot of sense for Seattle, kind of as that C acquisition. You got to aim higher, but if you end up with a guy like him on top of another bat, or even if you can't get that bat done and you get him, that's not Paul's fault. I think he makes sense. Anyway, outside of that, I thought Bryce Miller pitched pretty darn well. Yimi Garcia did fine. Austin Voth did a really nice job in his 2/3 of an inning, cleaning up the mess. Munoz didn't look great, but he gets the job done. And again, I hate the decision to use him, but that's just the world we live in. So now you're 56 and 51. You've won 3 straight. First series win in what feels like 15 years, but I think it's since like outside of the Padres series, certainly the first win of a 3-game series in a long time. You have 6 just enormous baseball games coming up, starting with 3 against Boston. Logan Gilbert against Nick Pivetta, fun matchup. Luis Castillo against James Paxton, former Mariner. That's a fun one. And then George Kirby against Brayan Bello. Advantage Mariners, but Bello was really good the last time out. His line didn't look as good, but Brayan Bello could pitch. We saw what he did against Seattle once before. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, at home for the Phillies, you've got Wu, Miller, Gilbert. Tough. I mean, nothing against any of those guys, but the Phillies are really good. And they're going to face a pitcher who's coming off a complete game shutout. So, you're going to take a look and say, who's Tyler Phillips? But Tyler Phillips has looked really good. Anyway, long story short, this week is massive. Massive, massive, massive. You're curious who the Astros play? Well, me too. They have kind of an interesting little schedule here. They get 3 against the Pirates. Paul Skeens pitching on Monday. That could be interesting. 3 against the Rays, who are clearly selling, and I imagine are not done. They moved Jason Adam and Isaac Paredes today. Imagine Yandy Diaz is next, maybe to the Mariners. They're they're clearly in rebuild, but they're talented and they've got some decent arms going in that series as well. So interesting. Pirates have not looked great against the Diamondbacks, but are a team that was playing really well. So far from a guarantee that the that the Astros are going to go ham in that series. It's scoreboard watching time, baby. Please hit like, please hit subscribe. Really appreciate the support. And again, a reminder that Monday, live chat during the game for Mile Y enthusiasts, $4.99 a month to join. And then on Tuesday, live chat, 1 o'clock. Please come out. I think it'll be a blast. Good win. Boy, the White Sox stink.